Good evening, everyone. It's 7:30. Wow, on the dot. It is Thursday, so it is time for our good neighbor talks. And special, great second episode with my special, great co-host. Hi, Amber.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful. How was your week?
Good. Hard to believe it's September already,
Enough,
right?
yeah, enough about that. Yeah, and it seemed like the summer just wanted to go away real fast.
I know.
Um, tonight's episode is it was actually inspired from the fact a couple days ago I co-hosted or guest hosted our In Black panel that's our sister show on Tuesday when we usually have a panel of 5 or 6 people from the community, and I was able to ask them many, like 10 crucial questions that like an ally that would want to ask them, and I learned so much. And when I sent you the list of topics, and you picked this one, I was very happy that you picked this one because this is the happy one for me. Out of the three, out of all the three ones, this is the happy one. The other two was just were important, but just a little bit. It seemed like it would be a little bit more intense. And
Mhm.
I wanted to actually, and at some point we're probably going to get to those more intense ones. But we're going to start off happy, and we want to talk about coming out this tonight for this hour. And I wanted to kind of give out my view a little bit before I can hear from you and actually have a discussion because you know so much more about this than me. But from the angle, I wanted to come out from the angle because I was reading a lot and I was noticing that, and even when I had the conversation with the panel, everybody's coming out was different. Many of them knew when they were younger, in their teens or even in elementary school, and but many of them did not actually come out till they were in their mid 20s. And I felt that to be interesting only because I'm a little bit older than you, and I am from what we consider the Gen X person, and I'm from the don't ask, don't tell era. We didn't discuss it. People were who they were. You didn't really ask them, and you just assumed certain stuff about them, and they was really private. And I
Right.
had, yeah. So then I had conversations like my mother's best friend was a gay gentleman from like when they were like teenagers until they're in their close to 70 now, and th- he is big on the fact that it being more private and keeping it to yourself and not actually being as visible. And now it seems like for one of the things that I do love and that when I did my research in the mid 2010s, more younger people are coming out and be more vocal and about their identities and their orientation because it became more acceptable in the society. It's still around the average age of 20, but then it also has to do with how you brought up, where you brought up at, and then your family.
Mhm.
I also, I kind of don't like to, I never really got it, the term in the closet and coming out of the closet, because I think, and maybe it was just because of me being more like, what does it matter? So whereas though to actually just assume that somebody is heterosexual, I thought that was kind of like offensive to people that are not. So I always just didn't understand. I don't like using that term personally, and I know that's something that the community uses, and I mean, I think. one of the things like it should be actually championed because so many people, especially younger people, when they don't have the opportunity to be who they are, then they end up hurting themselves or committing suicide.
Mhm.
I know I'm rambling on and saying a lot, but I wanted to end it and then we'll give to you by just saying if someone comes out to you that's a friend or a family member, I think that's a privilege. I think I mean, and you should accept it as a privilege. And I have several other stories to counteract that, to co-sign that from my own experience with family members who've had people come out to them. So, first of all, well, I'm gonna just ask you, so you go on your rant to yourself. Do you believe like coming out is like just something that's like should be championed and like it's a positive?
I think that we shouldn't have to come out. Why can't I just say, can my girlfriend come over?
Right. See, this is this is the point that I felt like it because I mean at this certain point, especially in 2025, I mean I could get it like years ago, but I think we say partner, we say
Mhm.
significant other, we don't actually say we don't say a lot of times we don't even say girlfriend or boyfriend. We use those other terms. It's okay. Answer me this. If we use those other terms, is that a giveaway that it may be somebody of the same sex?
Sometimes I wonder that, because think about it, like, so older generation, let's go like someone in their 80s, they'll say that's my companion,
Right,
because that's not really, they feel like they're too old for the term like boyfriend, girlfriend, right?
right,
And they're not
right.
going to get remarried. They're not, some of them aren't there. So they just say that's my companion, you
Hmm.
know? So I think that makes the difference. I wish that I could say that I feel like we're in a generation now where kids don't have to come out, but unfortunately, like you said, depending upon where you are, where you're raised, your ethnicity, your background, everything plays a role in that. And I do think that, like you said, oh, that's the gay cousin, that's the gay this person, that person. Like it wasn't talked about. It was very sheltered, very sheltered.
Right.
You know, um,
But you just don't discuss it.
right.
And they never brought their significant other around their family events
Or if they
or,
did, that was just their friend.
or their roommate.
Hmm.
And I always thought it was just funny when you just look at older TV shows or movies and you just see uh two women just being roommates for like 20 something years. Or even it was so funny, Pierce brought this up one time when we had a conversation with the odd couple, the old show from the 70s and 80s when it was two men that were just they were living together or roommates.
Hmm.
Like was that one of the first like gay couples that was on
Right.
television, but we just didn't actually discuss it.
Well, and was
It's
it because they present it as just roommates, right? They didn't
right,
present, like, they might say, they cared about each other, blah blah blah, but there wasn't that emotional connection and that display of love and affection
right.
that told us it was okay.
Have you in my experience, like I said, um I had somebody kind of sort of come out to me, but it was I think almost it was kind of like forced in a sense where as though quick stories so um I have a half sister that I didn't totally know existed until after my father passed. And after we really connected at my father's funeral. Her and you know, my full sister from my mom and my dad. Um, and me and my sister assumed from the way that my sister carried herself that she was part of the community. But we did not want to like force the issue, and because some people got to be comfortable with you, so they let you know that who they are. So she had a roommate that she that she stayed with, and something like that. And that's how she would say, "My friend, my roommate, this, that, and other." And it wasn't for a few months of us actually getting to know each other. And we're talking about we were adults, so 20. I was 20, she was 25. But after a few months, she was comfortable enough to actually tell both of us that she was gay and she had a girlfriend and this, that, and other. And our reaction was like, we just laughed. It was like, it's about time you told us. We were waiting on you. But it made me, and this was 23 years ago, because yeah, this was back in 2002, 2003. So it actually made me more informed and more patient with people and having an understanding. Like, it's not when you're ready, I'm ready to accept it. It's when you're ready to tell. And I
Right.
think that's what a lot of other people, especially if you truly an ally, or you have friends and family that you may suspect or whatever. I don't even know. You have to give them the grace to be ready for them to actually come to you and tell you who they are, if that's who they are.
I think you have to set the stage too. Like you have to create a safe space and you can't say derogatory things or, be like, "Oh, did you see that lesbian couple and they did this and blah 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 blah." If you're doing that, you're not setting the stage for a safe space, right? So people want that and even just like speaking on lesbians, how often do we kind of force like maybe more masculine presenting females into like this lesbian role, this other role, and say like, oh, they must be a stud, they must be, a derogatory term, a dyke. Well, no, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just more of a tomboy, you know. Maybe they don't really know who they are. Maybe they're trying to figure it out. But I think we're so quick to put the labels on that that's the problem.
Yo,
You
it's
laughing and
so
shaking your head.
funny. I'm laughing because it's so funny that you say that. And this is out of ignorance. And I'm going to say, because I've done this. You just stereotype somebody because uh we just assume people, we put society, I'm gonna say society, so I don't have to take total blame, puts stereotypical things on men and women in the way they should represent themselves. For the longest time, I thought one of my friends was gay, or at least bisexual, because I knew she had children and she had children by men or whatever. But it's just like she always wore sweatpants and baseball caps and or her hair, and even when they were growing up, they used to her and my sister used to steal my clothes when I wasn't there, like my jerseys and my baggy clothes and stuff like that. And long story short, one day I seen her because I was meeting her to drop off my nephew to go to it, and she had on her hair done and some wedges and some a nice sweater and some tight pants, and then she for the first time actually looked like a girl to me, and we ended up dating for like 6 years. But
Oh wow.
but she wind up. It was the same person that I thought that she was a lesbian because she just liked comfortable clothes and she had like tomboy and she could fix cars because her dad was a mechanic. And so that stereotype, it was just thrown out the way. And they actually said, like I said, I dated her for 6 years, and she's still a good friend of mine all these years later. So
Don't you think it goes back to the saying, don't judge a book by its cover?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So have in your experience, I mean, I know we spoke about it a little bit, but I don't know if you want to. Did you actually have a coming out, or it was just like, did you make an announcement to the world or family member, and how was that accepted or not? Or, if you want to go in that.
Yeah, so I was actually in my 30s, and for me, I think it was kind of like a whatever. Because I was older, I was grown, I had my own house, like my own life. I'd already moved away from home. So I think it was different versus like had I came out as a teenager, right? Now, I'm gonna say my godparents they're more old school in their 80s. When they found out that I dated a female, it was like, you weren't raised that way. What's wrong with you? You know? And some of that I do think is age. And I know that, like we say, we shouldn't make excuses, but you have to realize who they are and where they're coming from, right? And the fact that, like, she's in her 80s, she was, I say raised Bible Belt, brother in religion. So it's a very strict religion. It's a very different, and it was very much white and black, right? There was no gray area. There was no in between. It was white people dated white people, white girls married white men married white girls. Period. Like there was no wiggle room in there at all. So I think that yes, she could learn different, but is she gonna? When you're surrounded by the same people, the same society, the same things, like how much does that change, right? I will say being with Jay and being with a black man, that was more accepted than dating a female. So I think that's,
Really?
I think that's probably because I said I married that good old white boy and you seen where that got me,
Right.
so I think that was probably part of it. I feel like my family was just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like they didn't really know what to say or how to say it. But I feel like the younger generation, like my nieces and nephews that maybe are coming out or saying that they're trans or, just feeling that around are treated a lot differently. And I see that, comments about, well, how did they know that they're that? Well, how did you know that you liked girls? How did you know, Dion? Who told you that you liked girls?
I, no one told me at all. I, I basically like one of my first crushes is probably just like the average person is. It was like one of my school teachers when I was in like third or fourth grade. I'm just being honest, but I'm just saying,
I'm going to use this term a little loosely, but how often do you think we groom children at a young age to be heterosexual? How often, if little Johnny walks over to little Sarah, do we say, "Oh, is that your girlfriend?" Oh,
right, right, right,
so are
right,
we not, as a
absolutely,
society, a heterosexual society, maybe
yeah.
grooming children to move in that direction? So that's why, like, when we say that kids have to come out, I'm like, well, we've already set the stage, we've already set the tone that no, you're to like the opposite sex.
The heteronormative um,
Right.
perspective, and yes, it's just like when I was on the show the other day. One of the panelists said she knew when she was younger she didn't like boys, she liked girls. She actually her first crush was one of her sister's friends, so she just always hung around when their sister's friend was around. And she didn't like boys. Actually, she used to beat up boys. And I made the stereotype. I said, yeah, but I said back in the day, if you were fighting with a boy, they always made it seem like that's because y'all argued or fought because you
Mhm.
liked them and you had a crush on them. That I don't know if I mean if you remember if you heard that
Yep.
before the
Yep.
same thing.
If a boy was mean to you, it meant he liked you. No, it just meant that he
Well,
was mean and he was an ass. That's what it really meant.
I cannot actually agree totally with that because
You were mean to
I
girls that you liked.
not me, but you know what? And when I was younger in middle school and high school, I was inappropriate. Like when I met my ex-wife, my former wife, I met her. I was behind her, and the first thing I did was I plucked her behind her ear, and I just to get her attention because, and she turned around. But I wasn't being mean. I was nice to her after that, but I did like kind of what we would probably say now in 2025 is was like a I made a minor assault with her because I, but and also I mean when I was in high school, like girls you like you would steal their lunch tray or something like that, or you smack them on the booty and run away in the hall, smack
That
them
would
in the
be
booty in the
sexual
hallway and stuff
assault.
like all things that's just it's unacceptable, and I would not preach to my sons to do any of that, any of these things. But the 80s and 90s was a
It
different
was.
thing, and I was not enlightened. But yeah, it's no. I get where as though because in society you actually are forced to go in a certain direction, and I think that's why in a lot of people's cases they kind of fight truly who they are,
Mhm.
and they play along, and or for instance they give something a try to see if I know I know people. I had a conversation with a gentleman who was in a relationship, in a heterosexual relationship when he was a teen, and wind up having a child, and that was the only heterosexual relationship they had in their whole life, and and they were like 55. So they had a child now that's like in their, but he was 55 years old. He was 18. He dated, a young lady. They dated for a while. But he didn't like the relationship, the intimacy that wasn't, and you know. So
And
I
I
think
think that you
some people
sometimes
try things out
I
because they are
think
forced to try
sometimes
it
you
out.
see that. Yeah, and I think you see that with especially I've noticed with like older lesbian couples, some of them have
Yeah.
children, and it seems like that was because they did what was dictated of them, right? You know.
Hmm.
I was just laughing at Jay's comment to you that he would have never expected that from you.
uh, okay. You know what? Younger version of me, and especially, yeah,
A whole different
I've
Dion.
grown up a lot, but I was up, but I see what you're saying. Whereas though I know at no point did I have to wonder if I was attracted to women.
So
It just I knew it was inside me.
it's kind of like you just said, like sometimes people are just trying to feel things out, right? So I have a
Yes,
friend that said their child came home from school last year, second, third grade-ish, and said, I have a girlfriend.
right,
And they said, okay, cool. And they just left it at that.
right,
Because you know what? They don't know. They don't know if their
right.
child's going to continue to like girls or if their child's going to decide, you know what? I don't like girls after all. I really do like boys. They don't know, but they're encouraging their child to just be who they are and not put labels on it. And I think that is like the most commendable thing, especially for children. Like, why do we have to put a label on it? Why do we have to say because you're a girl and you have a girlfriend, you're automatically a lesbian? Well, maybe they're not a lesbian. Maybe they are bisexual. Maybe they just really like this girl, and they're not sure about anything, but let's let them feel it out and figure it out. Kids are smart.
Yeah, and I think especially when it comes in, when you're talking about before adolescence, and when you're talking about like elementary, and they say this is my friend that's a girl or my girlfriend or this that they I think more or less a lot of times, and this could be in the past because I do agree with you. Kids are more smarter now than they ever been, but it's just more or less. I think it's more pure. This is my friend, my girlfriend, and then he's like, oh well, this is my friend who's. I think the more detrimental thing is when children just believe everybody is their friend. Period. And more or less, because I know it has nothing to do with romance, and I think some people may actually just jump into just woo 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 hover mode, like oh my god, don't say that, this that another. When it's not, I can't imagine being 7, 10, whatever, and being romantically like involved in my head with somebody. But I could be that could have just be me. But I do totally agree with like I don't think we should people should actually just jump on it and just beat it down like because it could just mean my this is my
I don't
friend that is a boy, a
I
girl, my
don't
friend that's a
I
girl.
don't think that. I think you're off there. I think years ago
What?
it meant that. I think now if a little girl comes home and says, I have a girlfriend, she believes that's her girlfriend, just like we heteronormatize that's your boyfriend, right? And I really think that that's what that is. If a 7-year-old comes,
Romantically? Like in a romantic way?
yeah,
Real? Uh,
I think that
this
they
is me
do.
being old then, because I couldn't even think being 7 or 8 years old and think that. But I was okay.
But think about it.
School me.
Sometimes when they go to kindergarten, they're like, I got a boyfriend.
Hmm.
You don't hear boys say, I got a boyfriend. If they're with a girl and that's their girlfriend, like a romantic, they're saying, little Sally's my girlfriend. Well, what about Susie? No, she's just my friend.
You, I'm so far removed from the that age group of children, so you probably right. Although
As we're
I
like
do want.
I was gonna say
Go ahead.
older
I'm sorry.
generations, I do think like you'll hear them say, "Oh, that's my girlfriend," meaning that's my friend.
Right.
The younger generations, I'm gonna say like I'm 40 and down. That's not. Mm-mm. They'll
No.
be like, "I'm going out with a bunch of my friends."
Okay. Right. Right. And I do know that one of the things that like really affected me several years ago, and I think this is big, is I was dating a woman and her 18-year-old daughter came out to her, but it was to the point where as though she felt she was afraid, and I wanted to touch on this where as though a lot of people do feel fear and repercussions from their family
Mm-hmm.
because of relaying their identity and their sexuality or orientation to the point where though she wrote her mother like a 3-page letter. She didn't actually say it in person, but I would have been dating this woman for about 6 months, and she often told me how this her daughter had just graduated high school, and she told me how it was a struggle with her over the past few years and that she was just so grateful that she got her through high school. And then after a few months of dating her, she told me this because and it she took it real hard. Um, she was one of those people. They were religious. They were from the South.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and she was more or less about her, not the daughter. She made it about her. What did I do wrong? How is this happening? Then she would sit there and say, well, she was hanging around with these crowd of girls that seemed to be like that. So I think that's what happened. And they changed her, they influenced her. Oh my God. I'm never going to be a grandmother. Oh, it was all about her.
Mhm.
And it very much turned me off. This is before IME. This is before I had my even knew I was an ally or this or anything like that. It was, but it very much turned me off by way to my then girlfriend reacted to her daughter coming out to her. When I told her, I said, it's not about you. This is about your daughter. I said, did you ever think that she was struggling all those years and having problems in high school because she was dealing with her inner turmoil trying to find who she was? And maybe she has known this since she was 13, 14 years old and didn't know how to come about it. I left out something very important, Amber. They lived next to a gay a lesbian couple lived next door to them. They lesbian couple married, and a lesbian couple had just had a baby. Her mother was very nice to the gay neighbors, spoke to them daily, would bring, make food, and he had oh, take it over to the, take it over when he had the baby gift. So you know where I'm going. The
Mhm.
daughter saw that and saw that as an opening, like, oh, she's accepting to gay people. Also, the mother who worked in a hospital would often have a gay male friend from the hospital come over and hang. The daughter picked all this up. So she felt good enough to come out to her mother. And when the mother gave the negative reaction, it really hurt her. And she asked, what? Of course. Well, why are you had so and so comes over, you're nice to and she would say, but they're not my daughter.
Right. But what is really the difference?
But right. And that was the point. Needless to say, me and that relationship didn't last long. I did kind of like guide her to be more. She did become more accepting at by the time we were around. But she said something that another thing that made me really um, not look at her in a good way is she did have her daughter had a girlfriend that and she allowed the girlfriend to come over the house and but she specifically said like and she said that I told her I don't want to see them kissing or hugging up or all sitting on that couch or this, that, and other. And I said, did you? I said, why would you say that? Well, because she would push I said, did you tell she had an older sister? I said, did you tell the older sister the same thing when she had a boyfriend come over the house?
Mm-mm.
And I said, I'm just asking. And she said no, but they would she wouldn't do that. Talk about the older sister. This one would, because she tried. I said, no,
Mm-mm.
I don't believe. I said, you treating her like the other. If you didn't say that to the other one and she had boyfriends sitting on that couch and watching TV and being alone in the house with, why are you saying that to her? Do you see what you're doing? And so, but that was like one of the major reasons why I wanted to break it up with because I just didn't, I couldn't,
Because it's like a double standard. Because it's basically I
yeah,
don't agree with it, so I don't want to see it. Okay, I can understand that you might not agree with it, but Here's where, and give me a soapbox here for a minute.
Go
Um,
ahead.
we talk about unconditional love and how we love our children and we love our family. But how often do we put conditions on that love?
Hmm.
Because if you truly love me unconditionally, you're going to love me if I'm with the purple people eater. You're going to love me if I'm with a black man. You're going to love me if I'm with a woman. You're going to love me if I'm transgender. You're going to love me because unconditional love says you love me no matter what. Not you only love me if I'm heterosexual. Not you only love me if I can have children. And then the other side of that is for the mother to say, oh, I'm never going to be a grandmother. Well, sweetie, guess what? There are women out here that can't have children. So you still might not be a grandmother. And here's the other take. You know what? I'd rather have two teenage girls that are girlfriends cuddled up on the couch than the hormonal teenage boy that's probably going to get your daughter pregnant. So do you want to be a
Hmm.
grandma with a teenager, or like what is your focus? Because it sounds like you really don't care. You only care about what society's going to think and how normal it looks and not looks, you know? Um, and I often tell people that if someone says, "Oh, my daughter's a lesbian," I said, "Oh, well, let her girlfriend spend the night. She won't get pregnant." Like, because always that's always the thing, right? Like the thing's always, oh, they can't spend the night because they'll get pregnant. Well, honey, people have sex all the time. Sun up, sun down, you name it. It doesn't matter. Um, but I think that that's the big focus is we put conditions on our love. So, let's just break it down and take all of that out. If you truly love your children unconditionally, you love them no matter what,
Right.
no matter anything. And I've seen a lot of stuff, but you can put healthy boundaries up and still love your children.
I agree with that because personally, as a parent, I wouldn't want no matter hetero, straight. I don't want none of that going on in my couch with whoever.
Right.
And I don't want uh like my adult sons. They have girlfriends and stuff like that, and but they but they when we go away or whatever, they have their own rooms and things like that. Excuse me. But I'm old school where though, like when my kids was teenagers, it wasn't like their friends can come stay the night, and I know a lot of progressive people was like, oh well, it's better off if my kids drink at home with me, or if their significant others stayed instead of going somewhere or this that another under my. Nah, man, do like I had to do. Go sneak at a hotel somewhere or in the car or something.
No, because nowadays they'll catch a charge. So I'm a very progressive mother.
Oh God! Oh, I. We
You
are
should
going to
have
have
known.
this conversation
You should
again.
have known.
No, we're going to have this conversation again in about 13, 14 years. When your son, we'll have this conversation again. And I think you may have a different thought. If you will have a different thought, I know Jay will have a different thought
I think you're
about that.
wrong. Jay's not. We're very progressive in the fact
I,
that we believe in giving our son the tools that he needs to protect himself and protect whoever his partner is. I don't want you out on the street having sex if that's what you choose to do. But I do believe that you can be mindful. So if you don't want to see your kids all curled up, you can cuddle and hold hands, but I don't need to see your tongues down each other's throats.
I,
I don't, there are
right.
things, and I don't think that's about like you based upon your partner. I think that's based upon teaching your children or teenagers respect. Like there's just
Respect.
certain things that you don't do in front of other people, and that's not appropriate. If you want to hold hands, you want to lean over and kiss, okay. Honestly, Jay and I probably very rarely kiss in front of our family members. We just like if one of us is leaving, we'll be like, okay, love you, bye, and leave. I think it's just a respect thing sometimes for us.
Hmm.
We know that we love each other. We know how we feel about each other, but we don't have to flaunt that in front of other people, right? And I think that's what it's about, is just teaching our younger generations that it's okay to have that, but be mindful of that, and be respectful of whose house you're in and what place you're in. And, I know a lot of older generations are like, don't have sex in my house, which I think is a crazy little rule. Teenagers are going to do what they do. I really don't want you out here in the woods getting poison ivy on your,
Oh,
like,
see,
no.
there go the difference. I was born in the city, you was born in the country. So being out somewhere, you thinking of the wood, so I get it. But I think it's more or less though when we talk about orientation and sexual and then coming. I think like I stated at the beginning though, is like if we get to the point where as though somebody, especially it's a very high teen
Mhm.
LGBT population now, and it probably's always been, but just because the way society has been more accepting to people of all orientations, especially over the 2010s, and it's just everywhere, and people are more vocal about it because it's always existed. Um, I think it's more or less we have to be more diligent as allies and people that are not in the community. And even if, like I said, I didn't know I was an ally, I was just accepting because I just was accepting. But it's just like respect people's agency. And if someone actually does come out to you that's a friend or a family member, make it about them and actually thank them for giving you the privilege of them telling you who they really are.
Right.
Because sometimes I believe, like for instance, when I talk about my ex's daughter, I know for a fact that her struggles in high school and her depression and her just acting out had strongly to do with as she was going through this trial and tribulations of being able to come out. And I think it was kind of like rock. And to follow up on that story, after she came out, and it was kind of like a little bit rejected by the mom. She felt rejected because the mom took that. Oh my God, what did I do wrong? She
Right.
left and she went and stayed with her father.
Mhm.
She literally moved out the house because she felt rejected. Whereas though her father accepted her unconditionally.
Mhm.
It wasn't no woe is me.
Right.
That's my baby girl. And I think that was a beautiful thing. And something like that similar happened with a cousin, one of my first cousins. His oldest daughter was 16 and she came out to him, to her dad. And he brought it up to me because he knew the work that I did and we were sitting around and I said, "Yo, you don't know." I said, "Yo, y'all got a great relationship that she was comfortable
Mhm.
enough to come out to you."
Right.
And I said, "What was your reaction?" He was like, "I just hugged her," and he said, "I love you no matter who you are. You my baby, you my baby. I
Mhm.
thank you, and thank you for telling me." And I said that was the right reaction. And this was about 4 or 5 years ago, and so that could have went a totally different way if he wasn't accepted,
Mhm.
because we're talking about a 16-year-old, not like an established 30-year-old woman if that's this, that, and other, whatever. But and I applaud. I was like, yo, that was so perfect. And see that you don't. A lot of times you won't find that, especially in our community,
Mhm.
when it comes to. And I only say that because the cousin I'm talking about, of course, I mean he's black also, but he's Muslim.
Right.
So when we talk about like, and just like with people with religious and Christianity, it just seems like none of the religions really accept.
My
But
question to you
yes,
is, how do you think he would have handled it if it was a son and they said they were gay? Because I've noticed that there tends to sometimes be a double standard there.
you know what? I don't. I can't say. I've never asked him because he has daughters.
Right.
But I do know um my ex, another ex. I have a lot of exes, but
X's and
my
O's.
huh?
And they call it X's and O's.
Yeah. Um, her husband is Muslim,
Mm,
and she reached out to me several years ago because one of his sons is gay, and actually one of his sons and one of his daughters is gay. Um, or well, she said with the daughter is fluid, and
okay.
she's just like she don't that girl don't know what she is right now because she's 17, but she was dating both or whatever. She open, and I told her I was like, yeah, that used to. I said back in the day when you went off to college, that's what people did. I said
Mm,
she exploring, she figure it out. I said just don't don't make light of it as being a negative. Just
right. Just
support her.
support.
But with the when it came to the son, the son, she was very pro him, and but he had pushback from his family, his other siblings,
Hmm.
and he wind up going away to school and going away all the way all to the West Coast in college or whatever. And he's going through a transition. She's transitioning. But she said, "Live your life. I know your family, and I mean, she's like they weren't accepting to him." And she said, and he said, "Well, she now the transit. I want to be respectful. She probably would never come back
So dad
to
did not support.
no." And wasn't. You know what? The way she explained it to me, it was like really much, pretty much ridicule from his other siblings.
So it was the pressure of the family,
Yeah, yeah.
which is sad. And so, and that's sometimes like, like I said, for me, like I was just I was at the point in my life where I had been through so much that I just didn't care. I just wanted to be happy. For the first time in my life, I wanted to be happy, right? And so I looked at it in a different lens. But that doesn't mean that someone my age coming out might not have that same response. Their family might be like, no, we don't support it. And that could still be very detrimental, as where I was in a different headspace, and I had an amazing partner who had already been through, Jay was not accepted when he came out, and his coming out was boxed in, and, he had a whole different experience. So we talked openly about that. And we talked with other couples and what their experience was like, because I don't know how my family really felt. I didn't really ask. I just kind of said, I'm pansexual. This is who I am. And here I am. Like it, leave it, love it. I don't care. Because I was at the point that I just wanted to be happy. So I think it depends on your mindset sometimes too. And I
Hmm.
think it depends on your family ties. It had already been moved away for, I don't know, probably 10 plus years. So I was already kind of living on my own. I don't have any family here.
Except for the family that you made on your own.
Right. That I mean, I
Yeah.
have my chosen family that is
Yes.
very important to
Yes.
me. But, at that point it was very different for me.
Right.
But that's not to say that someone in a, more close knit family that's right there and they're all together all the time, that it wouldn't be different and it wouldn't be different pressure. That's unfortunate that he lost his child
Yeah,
basically because of pressure. And they're not the only family I've heard that about.
yeah. And then it's but sometimes people have to fly away
Hmm.
to actually be their true selves and be accepted. It's almost like the old saying like you go away to college, you can be whoever you want to be
Hmm.
because no one knows you there, so you can actually change your own personality. And that's when I think a lot of people actually do be the person that they were, especially when they grow up. Like you used to talk about how you grew up in boxed in into a certain type of small town or area, and that's why I often get frustrated, upset, discouraged, everything with a lot of these laws. And I know you and Jay probably talk about all the different laws that's in the different states and this, and I just sit there and be like, so they just think there are like no gay people in Iowa,
Hmm.
or there's no gay people in Nebraska, or these are these states that have these crazy. I'm like, so they. I'm like,
Hmm.
people exist everywhere, but they make these
Right.
laws like these people don't exist where they at in these little towns in these little small states. I wanted to ask you a question, kind of related, but a little bit off script, because from what I was talking to the panel the other night. Um, and especially how you said you don't, you moved away, you have this. I asked the question, do you have any straight friends? Do you and I said, and do you have any tension with your straight friends because of your orientation or your identity? And many of them said some people on the panel had friends from the time they was childhood and teenage and just that and other. But then I had a couple people on the panel that said that all their friends are pretty much all their friends were part of the community already. That's their friend group.
So I have friends that like I went to school with from like kindergarten on up. They're still on my social media. They're well aware of who I am. If they come down for like vacation or something, they'll message me. Some of them are in the community. Some of them are heterosexual. I would say I really didn't have a lot of friends. Big family, small little area, mostly my cousins. And, I have some cousins that are definitely heterosexual and they're having kids and doing
Def-
all that.
Definitely.
And they're super supportive. So I can't say anything. And sometimes I wonder if it's just not what I said to you before. A lot of people look at Jay and I as a heterosexual couple. So I think that sometimes people look at us and then, when I am with someone else, then they're like, oh, oh, that's a girl. Like, yeah,
What, hanging out? Oh, and you know what? I don't want to get into your personal life like that. But no, it's not. That's not where we're. But I
not
wanted to.
for 5 minutes anyhow.
No, no,
But
not at all.
it's just I think that if it was I was dating a girl, it would be more like in someone's face. As where I'm with a trans man, they look at Jay, they see a man, right? So
Right.
I think it's that, and I think that's the difference.
And you know what the craziest thing is? And I think it's actually it is a progressive and beautiful thing that a lot of us in general we don't look twice when it's a black man and a white woman or a white man and a black. That's not the taboo anymore.
Right.
That's not the taboo. So, and you know what? I mean, honestly, yeah, I've seen you two guys together, and it's just like I wouldn't think anything different. I get when you told me that I literally because I knew I already knew the truth, but then I had to think about it, and I was just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, Yeah, I see it. So it makes a lot of sense. But I think it'd just be a better situation all around if just people, especially family members, would just be more compassionate and understand that it's not about them. Because I was all. It's the craziest thing is I was always prepared, and I don't know if I've said this to you, yes, because I had 5 children. I was always prepared for one of my kids to be gay. Me and my sister actually talked about it because between our children, like, so we actually had some. We actually fingered a couple people that were responsibility over our stupid,
Yeah.
what stereotypical type thing. But I always, if it came about, it was just like, oh well, whatever, not a big deal.
Right.
And the world, and maybe a lot of it had to do with I didn't have those religious hangups,
Hmm.
and also about the way that again about the way I was brought up, whereas though we didn't, none of the people in my family was derogatory like that, and like and we weren't hateful
Hmm.
to. And I always thought when you talked about people like that, it was punching down
Hmm.
and being disrespectful because you just tried to push some type of you know, I don't know,
Basically,
personal
some type of
grudge against
hatred. Right.
somebody, personal grudge, and just I just I never liked that. I mean, because I grew up in an area where as though it was a lot of trans sex workers
Hmm.
in the area, and it's always down there on that just that number, and something I just the way people would talk about them, um, it just didn't sit well with me, and I I was so ignorant, whereas though with certain terms that were like gay slurs that I grew up in the area in the 80 in the night. I said certain words, but I didn't think it was about. I never thought it was about gay people.
Right.
It's like if you understand. If you said somebody, used a, say you call somebody an F word, it was about them,
Hmm.
but it
You didn't
wasn't.
realize the negative connotation that went
Yes,
with it.
or even the term of like, yo, you be, and I'm saying it now, and it's not, you being real gay right now, or like, oh, that's so gay. I
Right.
never, and I think heterosexuals don't see and hear it because it just so became so norm. And just like, for instance, I don't know if you know, like sports or whatever like that, but people with the Washington football team's name used to be, I don't even use it now. I'm just using it, but it used to be Redskins.
Hmm.
And people don't see the why is that a slur or why is that disrespectful. And I said, you're not Native American. Even the fact that, we had to force people and get people more enlightened not to call Native Americans Indians because they're not. They're not from
Hmm.
India. You know what I
Right.
mean? Little thing, but I always get I always get snowflaked and I'm just a little bit too woke, um, which is fine because I just think at a certain point, if you got to always put yourself, and this is why I have empathy, and I think this is why I'm a true ally. I put myself in. position of a person that's in the community. And because I think I can't feel, I don't know because I'm not there, but I listen to enough stories and things like that that I can be like, I feel you and I understand. I understand because being a black man in America, my people have been shunned and put in, beaten on, and saying we don't want you here, and this, that, and other. So it's a better understanding.
You know what
So,
I think it is? I
what
don't
is
even
it?
think it's that you're woke. I think that you see people as human beings, not labels. You see them as a human being. You
Yeah,
don't see a label, you don't see anything else. You see a human being. And
yeah.
that's what everyone should see. And that's what people forget. You know, just like the homeless person that's on the street that every morning asks me if I got a dollar. You know what? Most of the time I don't have a dollar, but I still say, good morning, how are you? And you know what he says? Good morning, sis. Every morning. And I didn't see him for a week straight. So I had to ask someone, where's the guy that's normally out here in front of this building?
Hmm.
Because a couple weeks before I saw him on the ground. And while everyone walked away, here Amber is stopping. And he said, my back hurts really bad. Do you have any ibuprofen? I said, I do. Would you like some? And I gave him ibuprofen. Why? Because he's still a human being. Like we look at people and we put these labels on them. We don't know them. We don't know their story. We don't know why they are where they are. We don't know how they got to where they are. And we forget that they're human beings and they deserve love and compassion and empathy.
That's just so true. Hello, Tim. Tim was one of the Tim was one of the panel members from he's one of the in black panel members.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
He's a he's an entertainer. Really a good does drag. We had a wonderful we had a wonderful conversation that went on for 3 hours with the other night. But yeah, I truly I thank you for saying that about me.
It's
I really
true.
appreciate that. Because I do I try to actually just, and I think we all should do that. It's a blank canvas. I don't I try not to look at people and just like put them in a box or say that we all are different. We're all are individuals. And I think one of the biggest things, especially with, you know, the name of the organization, I and me, we are who we are.
Hmm.
Um, it's just that's the mindset that I try to have. And I mean, I want to I want to end this up. I'm gonna have a little some last words and then see if you have anything left to say before we end up. But I just really want to just dig down on the fact that when somebody, if you have come in contact with somebody that comes out, take that as a privilege, accept it, and accept them, and just be positive. And if it's somebody close to you or what, show them the dignity and the respect and the love they deserve for actually sharing something that's very vital. It may not be vital to you, or you may not even get it, but I've learned in being in these spaces and listening to people when they get to the point where as though they sharing that with somebody, that is an accomplishment and it need to be respected and celebrated. What do you have to say? Last
Be,
words?
be kind, be empathetic, and take care of each other.
That's they were. Um, and with that, we were in this beautiful discussion of Good Neighbor Talks. Hopefully, we'll if you're not watching this later, we touched somebody and we gave you some type of understanding. And if you are part of the community, hopefully we gave you some chilling words. It's words though that you can see, and maybe you can have the courage to actually live your truth and actually come out. with that said, thank you, and we'll see you next week, neighbors. Thanks, Amber. See you next week.
Good
Bye.
night.